Welcome everyone to Caleb Watches Movies, the channel where I, Caleb, randomly select from one of the many movies that I own and I watch and review them for you, especially on days like today where I look back at all the films that I watched in 2023 and I give you my ranking of the top 10 films of the year that were my favorites. Now I gave myself a goal this year to watch at least 52 different new releases in the year of 2023 and I've exceeded that. I've watched at least 52 movies this year that were released in 2023. That's one movie a week. Very proud of myself. I'm trying to stay up to date with the cool kids, as they say. And we've had some tremendous pictures that have come out this year, but there were 10 that really stuck out to me as my favorites and the most impactful on the world and the film community, in my opinion. So before we get into it, let me just preface, this is my personal list. I'm not saying that these are the definitive top 10 films that everyone should agree with me on. This is my personal list. If you disagree, that's totally fine. I welcome you to comment on this video with your top 10 films that you watched in 2023 that were released in 2023. Let me preface that. So let's get into it. These are my top 10 films that I watched or reviewed here in 2023. Starting off this list at number 10 is a Netflix film that I thought was totally badass when it was released. It had some badass action scenes and choreography that made it look like one giant take. This is Extraction 2. Chris Hemsworth is a badass mercenary soldier dude who goes in to extract this woman and her 2 children from a prison, and it's totally freaking badass. One of the best action scenes that I've ever watched, and you can tell where there are sections where the camera resets itself, where the track resets itself, but the choreography with the camera and the cinematography here makes it seem like it's seamless, and it is beautiful. Just one long action take of this family from the basement of this prison making their way all the way to this train, and then the train gets derailed, and that was totally badass. Plus we get more backstory as to why this guy does what he does and why he is in this situation. And it just goes to show you that if you're gonna shoot a guy 150 times in the first installment, you better make sure that they're dead. Otherwise they're coming back in a sequel that's gonna surpass it. At number 9 is the highest box office grossing film of the year, and that goes to Barbie, which is a total shock to me with how Warner Brothers has done with their films this year. Thought it was gonna bomb, or at least do moderately well. I didn't think it was gonna do as great as it did, but that's just to go to say for this brand of Barbie. Barbie is known all over the world. And then on top of that, we get a film that was absolutely delightful. Seeing previews and trailers leading up to it, I didn't know how I was gonna think. Ryan Gosling as Ken, I mean, he's just so old, it doesn't make sense. I don't see him as Ken. But then you get into the movie and you realize that he's the best part. He has the best comedic chops. His whole musical performance in here is wonderful. And plus Margot Robbie as Barbie. I mean, that's just perfect casting. And she is great. She has great comedic timing and great dramatic moments in here as well. There is something in this movie for everyone. Comedic bits, musical performance, dramatic scenes that get you in the feels. Like, surprisingly, get you in the feels. And awesome cameos like John Cena as a Barbie mermaid. That's just perfect. At number 8 is probably one of the most beautiful films of the year with its use of CGI and its lackluster budget when it comes to other heavy-duty CGI films, and that is a movie called The Creator. A very timely movie about AI that is being created by us humans, but then something happens to where us humans now hate all AI, and we're going to exterminate, we're going to fight against them. It's a movie about AI trying to find its place on this earth, which is definitely a valid point because we created them. We create other humans that also deserve a place on this planet, so if we create AI, that is a sign of intelligence, and they deserve a place on this planet also. It's a slightly different take on past sci-fi films that deal with AI and humanity, but it's a gorgeous looking film, and the visual effects in here are seamless. Everything looks tangible, everything looks real. And one of the aspects of this film that I forgot to talk about in my review, so I'm glad I'm talking about it here, the whole consciousness flash drive thing. When you pass away, you can actually plug them into a computer and take a little bit of their conscious that gives you like 30 seconds of them when you plug it in, but it's only a one-time play. So that technology, I would assume that the idea behind this movie stemmed from that idea, because that moment with Gemma Chan at the end where she is now, her consciousness is inside the robot, but he gets to see her one last time and talk to her for a couple of seconds as the ship crashes is a beautiful moment. And that technology, needs to be created, please. I think all of us would spend every single dime that we have if a loved one is about to die and we take their consciousness and put it on a flash drive. I would hold that near and dear to my heart for the rest of my life, and then just before I kick the bucket, I would play that so I can talk to her one last time. That's why I love this movie, and that's why it's in my top 10 list. At number 7 is a beautiful conclusion to the best franchise in the entire MCU, and that is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. What a wonderful and beautiful way to end this franchise, not in a tragic way, but to see these characters who have created this family, and now they're moving on with their lives. Going into it, you think that there's going to be so much death, and actually there's not a lot of death at all, at least with our main little group of Guardians here. But they are moving on to the next stage of their life. And this entire film, the way it is written and how it handles its characters, it tugs at your heartstrings, and I absolutely loved this movie. I could have done a little less with all of the animal torture and all of the animal cruelty, but that's all playing into the story of Rocket and where he comes from and his small little group with Teefs, Floor, and Lila. Oh my god, it's a beautiful moment. And then to see them save all of the humans and aliens from the ship, but then also save all of the animals that were caged up, and to treat them with respect as life forms, so that all life forms from this ship, we're going to save them all. And I absolutely love that. The Guardians turned out to be the best mini franchise within the entire franchise of the MCU. Every single entry got better with each one that came out. Guardians was great. Volume 2, even better. The holiday special, surprisingly, was better than the first two. And then here's Volume 3, better than any of them. It's a beautiful story. James Gunn knows what he's doing, and with him leaving Marvel now, going over to DC, if we're getting his creative process with what he did with Guardians in the new DCU, DC is going to be fantastic for years to come. At number 6 is one of the most fun videos that I put out this year. It was a first-time watch-along of this horror film, and I'm not the biggest horror fan, but this movie was just so much fun with all of its bloody, gory disgustingness, and that was Evil Dead Rise. Alyssa Sutherland has some of the best physicality I have seen all year. She is perfect for this deadite character, how she contorts herself, her facial reactions, how she's able to manipulate her hands and her body posture with attacking and haunting all of these people in this apartment complex. She's fantastic. And plus the production design, how they paid tribute to horror films from the past, the whole blood elevator scene from The Shining that we get in this movie, I just absolutely loved. And it had a lot of Sam Raimi qualities about it, which I really love. I know not everyone loves Sam Raimi, but I love his sensibilities and I love his directing style, and you get some of that in here. It was a lot of fun shooting my first time reactions to a quality horror film for this channel. It's a review that I go back and I watch constantly because I just love the experience. Evil Dead Rise, one of the funniest and scariest horror films that I've watched in a while. At number 5 is a film that once again has some of the best fight choreography that I have ever seen in a film, and Keanu Reeves gives an amazing performance here with John Wick Chapter 4. At first I thought this film was going to be Keanu Reeves kind of taking a step back and we're going to bring in other people to do all the fight choreography, like Donnie Yen is going to come in and he's going to kick everybody's ass, who is also great in the film. He was fantastic. But then out of nowhere, Keanu Reeves comes out with some nunchucks and he kicks everybody's butt, and then we move on like we typically do in a John Wick film. The whole staircase scene with him trying to get up the stairs so that he can make it to the duel to potentially die was fantastic, and how he gets all the way up and then gets knocked down all the way back down to the original level, and then he tries to make himself up again. It's just great. Love this movie. And no dog deaths. Thank God. We had enough of that with the first one. No dog deaths here. As of this recording, I don't know if it's official that they're going to be making John Wick Chapter 5. I know the director said that he has ideas that they could go for a 5th entry. I mean, I want to see this go on for 20 more entries. But with how this film ends, if this is the last chapter, if this is the last time we see Keanu Reeves as John Wick, you know, he went out in a beautiful film, and it's one of my favorites of the year. But speaking of one of my favorites, it's actually turned out to be one of my favorite superhero films of all time, and it did not do well in the box office, and a lot of people just went into the film wanting to hate it for some reason. And I'm not sure why, because I had an absolute blast watching The Flash in theaters. It's a movie that I have gone back to several times and have watched constantly, because I thought this film was fantastic. Everyone bashes on it for CGI, and the effects in here all look fake, and I don't know where that criticism is coming from. I watched this so many times, and I've loved the CGI. The whole Chronobowl aspect, the idea with that behind time travel, I think is a brilliant idea. And yes, things look askew, but he's in the Speed Force. I took that as a production design. And then it came out that Andy Muschietti confirmed that. That was intentional, that everything was going to look off whenever he's moving fast. And I thought it was a beautiful adaptation of the whole Flashpoint story, kind of making its own thing. But it leads to one of the most beautiful climaxes I have seen, with Barry Allen meeting his mother again in the grocery store. I can't watch that scene without crying. Every time that I've watched this movie a lot this year, and every time I get to that scene, I'm just in a ball of tears. It's a beautiful moment. And Ezra Miller, who I think is probably the reason why this film didn't do so well in the box office, with all of his stuff that's happening in real life, for me, I try to put that aside, and I watch his performance in here, both performances, and he's fantastic in both of them. Ezra Miller is the best part of this movie. And I know people don't want to hear that, but god damn it, it's a great performance. Seeing Michael Keaton come back as Batman is awesome. He has a great little section in here when they go and rescue Supergirl. After that, he's basically not needed, but it's still cool to have Michael Keaton back. Sasha Calle as Supergirl I think is great, and I hope she continues on in that role in the DCU. Probably not, though. And then we have a beautiful little send-off with Ben Affleck as Batman, talking about how you need to live your life, not your past. That is the last scene of Ben Affleck as Batman, who is one of our best Batmans that we've ever had. And it's a beautiful scene, and I absolutely love it. I love this movie. I love all the cameos. I love all the CGI. I love the story. When I go into a movie, I just want to be happy. That's all I want. And when I went into this movie, I was extremely happy with everything that happened. Even that little cameo at the end with George Clooney Batman. That made me so freaking happy. I'm a huge fan of Batman and Robin, actually. I know it's ridiculous. I know it's a comedy, but it's a film from my childhood. So seeing him get a little reprieve for his take on Batman, I thought was great. The Flash is definitely the best superhero film of the year, and it's one of my favorites of the year. At number 3 is the definition of new history, that section from Barnes & Noble, which originally didn't make sense to me, but then we get films like this, and like, oh, yeah, this is new history, isn't it? This is Dumb Money, a dramatic comedy that looks at the events at the whole GameStop Wall Street takeover that happened a couple of years ago during the pandemic. It doesn't really go into detail as to how this affected Wall Street and how this affected the stock, but it doesn't dumb everything down for us. What we are looking at here is the people who were behind this movement, and we watch them push forward and hold, and hopefully that the stocks go up even farther to where they have a lot of money on paper. And it's a great ensemble cast. Everyone here is stellar. Paul Dano is great. Seth Rogen, who produced this film, he was really great as the narcissist hedge fund dude who oversaw GameStop and all that shit. It's a little frustrating though seeing this film play out and realize that, oh yeah, all these people that had money, well, they got bailouts, or they never got sentenced for criminal acts or doing something illegal, because I guess technically they never did anything illegal. So it's frustrating to have my thoughts confirmed that, well, if you have money, you could really get away with anything in this country. But Dumb Money is fantastic. It is a great ensemble piece that more people need to see. At number 2 is probably the best ensemble cast of this entire year. Came out very early on, actually, and it's another fantastically directed film by Ben Affleck, who is proving that he is one of the best directors of our time. Movie called Air. We're looking at the creation of the Air Jordan, one of the most popular and famous shoes of all time. And for a guy that doesn't really pay attention to shoes and is not really into a shoe trend, I don't wait hours in line to get a pair of shoes. I just look for what looks okay okay, and what is comfortable, and what's affordable, and I go with that. But here we see the creation and how this shoe was attached to the greatest NBA player of all time. Excellent performances from Jason Bateman and Matt Damon, who also have some fantastic monologues in this film too. If I were going out for auditions and they needed a dramatic monologue for me to recite, I would pick one of their monologues in here and I would use that. But I love this trend over the last decade of taking what could be a biopic about an athlete and looking at it from the business point of athletics. And in here we eventually find out that the Air Jordan, the whole deal that was cut with that, is one of the most impactful deals of all time to help athletes maintain their likeness with companies like Nike and Adidas. If I'm going to sell my name and I'm going to sell myself over for this product, I'm going to get a little cut of the profits. Air, definitely one of the best films of the year. A nice dramatic picture that had a lot of comedic bits in it, great cinematography, a great pacing to it. It's one of the best films of the year. However, the absolute best film of this year that absolutely should win Best Picture at the Oscars, Christopher Nolan should win for Best Director, and Cillian Murphy should win for Best Performance, the magnificent film Oppenheimer. 3 hours of people discovering and creating the atom bomb that essentially destroyed the planet. We detonated a few, which was disgusting, but the idea of having this weapon here basically destroyed the planet. That's this message that this film is granting you. And my god, this film is a cinematic experience that everyone needs to enjoy. Cillian Murphy deserves to win Best Actor alone for the pep rally scene where he's talking about how, yes, the bomb works and now we're going to stick it to them, aren't we? And the sound design. Holy shit. The sound design of this film is intoxicating. It really is. It sucks you in. It gives you goosebumps. The sound design, it touches your soul. Feeling the rumblings of the bomb and the rumblings of the anxiety that this character is feeling all throughout this story it's intense, and it's beautiful, and it's wonderful. And Ludwig Göransson's score is magnificent. This is one of the best. Christopher Nolan knows how to get a musician to create a score that just equals the magnitude of what he's putting on screen. The practical effects here, the tangible effects are wonderful. All the performances here are fantastic. Oppenheimer is definitely by far the best film of 2023 and should win Best Picture at the Oscars next year. So that is my list of the best films that I watched in 2023. What did you think about it? What is your ranking of your top 10 films that you watched in 2023 that were released in 2023? Whatever you thought, comment below. Let me know what you thought about it. And as always, if you like what you see here, if you like my take on movies, then hit the subscribe button and make sure you hit that bell so you know the next time I'm releasing next movie review. So guys, I will see you next year on the channel, but in the meantime, be well, be good to each other, and go watch a movie. Take care, guys.